The drama around Mendeecees Harris has taken a shocking turn. Fans were already upset by his past mistakes, but no one saw this coming, a hidden affair that has ripped his family apart. Yes, Mendeecees has been caught cheating, and the fallout is much worse than anyone could have imagined. For months, people had been talking about Mendeecees and a mysterious woman. But it wasn't until now that the truth came out, and it is a huge scandal. When the news broke, both fans and family members were shocked and could hardly believe it. Not only had Mendeecees been unfaithful, but he also has a secret child with the woman who had been hiding in the background. The consequences have been huge. Yandy Smith Harris, his wife, was completely blindsided by this truth, and her response was full of heartbreak. But what really shook the family was how this secret changed everything they thought they knew about their lives. Tensions are now higher than ever, and it is clear that this scandal has completely changed everything for them. Accusations started flying, and it seemed like no one could avoid the fallout. How will Mendeecees and Yandy deal with this shocking betrayal? Will this be the end of their marriage? And what about the child? The one no one even knew existed? Stay tuned, because what happens next is drama you will not want to miss. Mendeecees Harris's life has just taken a huge turn. This shocking news hit his fans like a bombshell, something no one saw coming. The image of love and family that Mendeecees had carefully built over the years is now in ruins. For months, rumors had been swirling about his personal life, but no one could have prepared for what was uncovered. It wasn't just a long-hidden affair, there was also a secret child no one knew about. Mendeecees had always kept his private life out of the public eye. For the most part, he managed to do so successfully. His charm, dedication to his family, and reality TV persona made him one of the most liked figures in the industry. But beneath all of that, there were hidden layers of deception. What seemed like the perfect life now looks completely different. The perfect family life Mendeecees had built was about to be turned upside down. No one could have guessed that behind closed doors, Mendeecees was hiding a secret that would send shockwaves through the media and his personal circle. The affair had been a kind of open secret in some circles, but it wasn't until now that the truth came out. The woman involved remained a mystery to the public, but the story was quickly unraveling. The affair had been kept hidden for a long time, and it was only after constant investigations and leaks that the public began to piece everything together. Fans who once admired Mendeecees for being a devoted husband and father now found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew about him. The betrayal was deeper than anyone had imagined. The person hit hardest by this revelation was Yandy Smith Harris, his wife. Yandy, who had always been the picture of strength and grace, was blindsided by the truth. She had given everything to her marriage, supported Mendeecees through thick and thin, and built a family with him. Now, everything she thought she knew had been shattered. Yandy's emotional reaction was heartbreaking to watch. Yandy's reaction was raw and unfiltered, a mix of disbelief, anger, and sadness. She had always believed in the strength of her marriage, but now, everything she knew was falling apart. When Yandy first heard the news, it felt like the ground beneath her feet had been pulled away. She could not believe that her husband, the man she'd been with for years, had been hiding such a huge secret. The anger she felt was impossible to ignore. She could not understand how Mendeecees had kept this from her, especially after everything they had built together. But there was more to the story than just an affair, something much more shocking. Yandy was about to find out that her husband had fathered a child with another woman. That truth would stay with her for days, haunting her thoughts. Meanwhile, Mendeecees was trying to keep himself together. But as the scandal grew, the reality of the situation started to sink in. He had kept the affair and the secret child hidden for so long, but now there was no way to escape the fallout. The media frenzy was non-stop, with every tabloid and gossip outlet running stories about the scandal. The betrayal shook everyone to the core. Fans who once admired Mendeecees were now questioning his honesty. His family was in chaos, and his future seemed uncertain. But it was not only Yandy who felt the weight of the betrayal. The entire family was in shock. Mendeecees' children were too young to fully understand what was happening, but as the news spread, they could feel the tension in the air. Family members became divided. Some stood by Mendeecees, while others supported Yandy, who felt completely betrayed. The emotional struggle within the family was overwhelming. Everyone had to pick a side, and no one was coming out of this without being hurt. As the news spread like wildfire, reactions were mixed. Fans flooded social media with messages of shock and disappointment. Some quickly condemned Mendeecees for his actions, while others tried to defend him, saying he had been a good husband and father despite his mistakes. The media, as always, had a field day, running headline after headline about the affair and the secret child. The more the story unfolded, the more it seemed like no one in Mendeecees' life was safe from the chaos. The affair was just the beginning of the storm. As more details came out, it became clear that there were even deeper layers to the story. Mendeecees had to face the reality of his actions, and the consequences were far worse than he had ever imagined. The affair was painful enough, but the existence of a secret child was something that would change everything. For Yandy, the pain was not just about the affair, it was about the life she had built with Mendeecees. The child wasn't just a betrayal, it represented everything she thought she knew about her husband and their marriage. How could Mendeecees have kept this from her? How could he have been so careless with their family? These questions haunted her as she tried to make sense of the wreckage. Amid this chaos, Mendeecees' secret child was revealed to be a young boy, barely 5 years old. The child's mother, who had stayed hidden for so long, was suddenly in the spotlight. Fans and the media quickly turned their attention to her, speculating about her motives and her role in this heartbreaking drama. The relationship between Mendeecees and the woman remained a mystery for a long time. And the big question now was how she had kept the child's existence a secret for so many years. This revelation only added to the drama, making it clear that the affair was not just a short fling. It had been a long-term relationship that lasted for years. Mendeecees, who had always been the life of the party and seen as the stable figure in his family, was now left to pick up the pieces of his broken world. His reputation was destroyed, and his relationship with Yandy was hanging by a thin thread. The trust they once had was gone, and it seemed like there was no way to repair it. The family, once so close, was now torn apart. Mendeecees and Yandy were at odds, and everyone around them had to pick a side. The drama was far from over. As the days passed, the tension grew, with accusations flying and emotions running high. The bond that once seemed unbreakable between husband and wife now felt like a distant memory, replaced by a bitter reality neither of them had ever imagined. The fallout from Mendeecees' cheating scandal was only just beginning. The public pressure was overwhelming, and the emotional toll on everyone involved was clear. What would happen next? Could Mendeecees and Yandy overcome this betrayal, or was their marriage doomed for good? The answers to these questions were still uncertain, but one thing was for sure. This drama was far from over, and the twists were just beginning. The aftermath of Mendeecees' shocking affair continued to unfold quickly. With each new day, more shocking details came to light, each one more surprising than the last. Yandy's emotional state was growing more fragile with each passing hour. What had once been a loving marriage now seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Mendeecees, caught in a whirlwind of regret, tried to salvage what was left of his broken reputation, but it seemed like the damage could not be undone. Yandy, who had once been the picture of strength and grace, was now visibly shattered. Every time she spoke about the affair, her voice broke with emotion. The anger that had once burned inside her was slowly being replaced by deep sadness. Deep sadness filled Yandy's heart, and she could not help but wonder how her life had come to this point. How had she missed the signs? How had her husband, the man she had trusted with her heart and soul, betrayed her in the worst possible way? The trust between them was gone, and Yandy had to face the painful reality that she could not undo what had been done. In private moments, Yandy would break down, unable to control the flood of emotions that overwhelmed her. She had been through so much with Mendeecees, and now it felt like everything they had built together was falling apart. Despite the pain, Yandy knew she had to make a choice about the future of her marriage. The thought of walking away from everything she had known was terrifying, but staying in a marriage built on lies and betrayal seemed just as unbearable. Meanwhile, Mendeecees found himself trapped in deep emotional conflict. He had tried to keep everything together, but the weight of his actions was slowly crushing him. He had never imagined that his affair would come to light in such a dramatic way. What had he done? How would he face the consequences of his mistakes? What had been a secret Mendeecees thought he could control was now spiraling out of control, and there was no way to take back the pain he had caused. The revelation of the secret child only made everything worse. Mendeecees had tried to justify his actions to himself, but the existence of his son with another woman was something he could never ignore. Every time he looked at his own children, he was reminded of the mess he had made. How would he ever explain this to them? How could he face his family knowing that he had shattered the trust they had placed in him? Mendeecees was not only dealing with the fallout from his wife, but he was also facing the consequences of his actions within his own family. His mother, who had always been a strong figure in his life, was visibly disappointed. She had raised him to be a man of integrity, someone who would never betray those who loved him. But now, she found herself questioning the man her son had become. Their conversations were tense, filled with silence and unspoken words. His mother did not know how to comfort him. In her eyes, Mendeecees had crossed a line that could never be erased. As he tried to process the chaos of the situation, the public scrutiny only grew more intense. Fans, who had once supported him, began to turn away. Social media was flooded with comments, memes, and reactions from those who felt betrayed by his actions. Many of his followers were in shock, unable to reconcile the man they had admired with the one they were now seeing. Some were quick to condemn him, while others tried to defend him, claiming that everyone makes mistakes, but no amount of defense could protect him from the harsh truth that his marriage was hanging by a thread. Amid all of this, the mother of Mendeecees' secret child stepped into the spotlight. She had kept her identity hidden for years, but now, with the truth exposed, she was no longer willing to stay in the shadows. The media quickly turned their attention to her, eager to learn every detail of her relationship with Mendeecees and the child they had together. Her story, just like his, was filled with drama and complications. The mystery woman, whose identity had been kept secret for years, finally revealed herself. Her name was Samantha, and she was no stranger to the world of reality TV. Samantha had been involved with Mendeecees long before his relationship with Yandy even started. Their relationship had been a secret from the beginning, and the emotional bond they shared was undeniable. But Samantha had been careful, always staying out of the limelight and never seeking fame or attention. However, now that the child was involved, she had no choice but to speak out. Samantha's emotional toll was just as heavy as Yandy's. She had loved Mendeecees, and although she had been aware of the complications in their relationship, she never imagined it would come to this. The public eye now placed her and her child at the center of a media storm. She didn't want the attention, but it was clear that she would have to face it. She was thrust into the spotlight, answering questions she never wanted to face. What the emotional weight of being exposed for something so private was overwhelming. But Samantha had no choice but to speak her truth. As the media continued to push for answers, Mendeecees' world continued to crumble. His marriage was falling apart, his reputation was in tatters, and the emotional weight of the situation was bearing down on him in ways he had never anticipated. The drama surrounding his affair and the secret child was only getting worse, and there seemed to be no end in sight. Meanwhile, Yandy was struggling to find her footing in a world that had been completely turned upside down. She was a strong woman, but even the strongest person can only take so much before they break. Her family was in turmoil, and she found herself questioning everything: her marriage, her choices, and her future. Could she ever forgive Mendeecees for what he had done? Would she be able to rebuild her life after this devastating betrayal? Or was this the end of their story? As the drama continued to unfold, the future of Mendeecees and Yandy's marriage remained uncertain. Was there any hope for reconciliation? Or was this the beginning of the end? The tension between them was clear, and the questions about their future only grew stronger. Neither of them seemed willing to back down. With the public watching their every move, it seemed like only time would tell if Mendeecees and Yandy would ever find a way to move forward. The weight of the situation was beginning to wear heavily on everyone involved. Mendeecees, despite his efforts to salvage what was left of his personal life, found himself sinking deeper into regret. The public scrutiny, coupled with the betrayal of his wife and family, was taking a toll on his mental and emotional health. He had always prided himself on being a loving father and husband, but now it felt like he was losing everything he had worked so hard to build. Yandy, on the other hand, was faced with the heart-wrenching reality that her life, as she had known, it was over. The emotional fallout from Mendeecees' affair and the hidden child was more than she could bear. Her once solid marriage was now in tatters, and she was left to pick up the pieces. Every day felt like a battle as she grappled with the pain of betrayal, the public spectacle that was unfolding, and the pressure to make a decision about her future, while the emotional conflict between Mendeecees and Yandy was reaching a breaking point. The situation was also affecting their wider family dynamics. Mendeecees' children were beginning to realize the gravity of the situation. They were too young to fully understand what had happened, but the tension in their home was impossible to ignore. Yandy, who had always been a mother figure to Mendeecees' children, now found herself questioning what kind of future they would have. Could she continue to play a part in their lives after everything that had happened? And how would they cope with the sudden change in their family dynamic? As if the emotional toll wasn't enough, Mendeecees' world was becoming increasingly chaotic. Samantha, the mother of his secret child, was now fully in the public eye, and the media was relentless in their pursuit of her. She had kept her silence for years, but now that the truth had come out, she had no choice but to speak her mind. The media frenzy around her was intense, and every aspect of her life was being dissected for the world to see. The constant barrage of questions and accusations was overwhelming. But Samantha remained firm in her resolve to protect her child and herself from further scrutiny. Mendeecees, desperate to regain control of the situation, reached out to Samantha. He knew that if he did not find a way to address the fallout from his secret child, things would spiral even further out of control. He had never imagined his life would come to this, but now that it had, he had to figure out how to make things right. His conversations with Samantha were tense, filled with unspoken frustration and confusion. He had betrayed both Yandy and Samantha, and now it seemed like there was no way to fix the mess he had made. Samantha, for her part, was struggling with the newfound attention. She had always kept her relationship with Mendeecees under wraps, never seeking the limelight. But now, she had no choice but to be a part of the public spectacle. The media wanted answers, and the pressure was mounting on her to give them. But she was not going to let the media dictate her life. Yandy knew that the most important thing was protecting her son. She refused to let anyone use him as a pawn in their drama. Despite the chaos, she was determined to stand firm and protect her family. But the drama was not over. As Mendeecees tried to navigate his way through the storm, a new twist emerged. Yandy, who had been grappling with her emotions, finally decided to take control of the situation. She had been quiet for so long, but now she was ready to speak her truth. Yandy had always been a fighter, and she was not about to let Mendeecees' betrayal define her life. With the media watching her every move, Yandy held a press conference revealing her side of the story for the first time. The press conference was a pivotal moment in the saga. Yandy, calm but visibly emotional, spoke directly to the camera. She explained the pain and betrayal she had felt upon discovering Mendeecees' affair and the existence of his secret child. She talked about the years of love and trust she had invested in her marriage, only to have it shattered by her husband's actions. The raw emotion in her voice resonated with fans, many of whom expressed their support for Yandy in the wake of the press conference. But Yandy did not just stop at her personal feelings. She addressed the public fallout from Mendeecees' actions and how it had affected their family. She made it clear that she was not going to let this define her or her children's futures. She was determined to rise above the drama and focus on what was best for her family. Yandy's press conference was a powerful moment of empowerment, and it sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. Meanwhile, Mendeecees was reeling from Yandy's public statement. He had hoped that he could salvage their relationship in private, but now that everything was out in the open, he knew there was no turning back. Yandy had drawn a line in the sand, and it was clear that she was not going to back down. Mendeecees was now forced to confront the reality of his actions. There was no more hiding behind excuses or trying to protect his image. The truth had come out, and there was nothing left to do but face the consequences. The media, of course, had a field day with the press conference. Headlines blared about Yandy's emotional statement, and fans flooded social media with their reactions. Some applauded Yandy for speaking out, while others criticized her for airing her personal drama in public. The opinions were divided, but one thing was clear. The drama surrounding Mendeecees, Yandy, and the secret child was far from over. As the dust began to settle, Mendeecees was left to reflect on the mess he had created. His marriage was hanging by a thread, his reputation was in tatters, and the emotional toll on everyone involved was undeniable. He had made a mistake, and now he had to live with the consequences But could he ever repair the damage? Was there any way to salvage his relationship with Yandy? The questions remained unanswered, and the tension continued to build as the drama unfolded further. The road to redemption, if there was one, would not be an easy one for Mendeecees. His family was fractured, his reputation tarnished, and his personal life was now under the harshest public scrutiny. His marriage on the brink of collapse. Yandy had made it clear that she was not going to accept his betrayal easily, and Mendeecees knew that he had a long road ahead of him if he wanted to rebuild what he had lost. As the saga continued, fans were left on the edge of their seats, eagerly awaiting the next chapter in this dramatic story. What would happen next? Would Mendeecees be able to repair his relationship with Yandy, or was their marriage doomed to fail? The tension was palpable, and the next twist in this emotional roller coaster was sure to be just around the corner. The emotional drama surrounding Mendeecees, Yandy, and the secret child continued to unfold with no signs of resolution in sight. The tension between the couple had reached a boiling point, and the media was on high alert, waiting for the next scandalous twist. Yandy, despite her public display of strength, was still grappling with the deep pain of Mendeecees' betrayal. She had always believed in the sanctity of family, but now it felt like her entire world was unraveling. Mendeecees, on the other hand, found himself lost in the mess he had created, unsure if there was any way back to the family he once knew. His attempts to fix things, Yandy grew stronger. She had become a woman who would no longer tolerate the betrayal. The love they once shared felt like it belonged to a different time. Mendeecees had tried everything: public apologies, private pleas for forgiveness, even therapy. But nothing seemed to reach her. The pain she felt was too deep, and his words no longer had the power to heal her heart. Yandy had made up her mind. The trust they once built their marriage on was gone, and no amount of effort could bring it back. She could no longer ignore the hurt that weighed on her every day. Mendeecees had broken her, and now it was her turn to break free. She realized that her happiness could no longer be sacrificed for a marriage that was beyond repair. The bond that had once been unbreakable was gone, and Yandy knew it was time to move on. As she distanced herself, the world seemed to fall silent, and the future of their relationship became a closed chapter. His secret child, Samantha, remained at the center of the storm. She had become a part of the story whether she wanted to or not. The media was relentless in their pursuit of her, and the attention was overwhelming. She had always kept her life private, but now everything was out in the open. The drama, the accusations, the constant pressure. She had to face it all. Despite the chaos, Samantha remained focused on protecting her child. She refused to let the spotlight take away their peace. Mendeecees, on the other hand, could not escape the consequences of his actions. Each attempt he made to repair the damage seemed to fall short. He had hoped for a chance to rebuild, but the trust was gone. Yandy was no longer the woman he once knew, and he struggled with the thought that he may never regain her love. He had lost everything: his marriage, his family, and his dignity. The weight of his mistakes was unbearable, and now he had to live with the fallout of his own choices. The emotional toll on everyone was evident. Yandy, though still hurting, was determined to protect her children and her future. She was not going to let Mendeecees' mistakes define her any longer. Her journey from victim to warrior was complete, and now she was fighting for her own happiness. The drama was far from over, but Yandy had made her stand clear. She would not let the past control her, attention that the media was trying to force on her. Samantha's focus remained on protecting her child and ensuring a safe, peaceful life away from the spotlight. She had always kept her personal life private and out of the public eye. But now, with the world demanding answers, she had no choice but to speak up. She refused to let the media turn her into just another story. Her past with Mendeecees was complex, filled with love and secrecy, but now it felt like that love had been turned upside down. The relationship that had once been her own private world was now exposed to the harsh realities of public scrutiny. It was a situation she had never asked for, but it was her reality now. While everyone around her seemed to be caught up in the drama, Samantha remained focused on what mattered most: her child's well-being. The media's questions, the accusations, and the constant attention were overwhelming, but Samantha held firm. She wasn't going to let anyone use her or her child for entertainment. The pressure weighed heavily on her, but her determination to protect her son from the chaos that had suddenly invaded their lives kept her grounded. She was ready to face the storm, not for herself, but for the sake of her child's future. His actions dictate their future. Samantha had already been through so much, and she was not going to let Mendeecees' mistakes affect her child any more than they already had. She knew that forgiveness would take time, if it ever came at all. Mendeecees may have been seeking redemption, but Samantha wasn't ready to welcome him back into her life just because he had realized the gravity of his actions. Her priority was her son's well-being, and she would do everything in her power to shield him from the hurt and confusion that had been caused. Mendeecees' attempts to reach out were met with cold resistance. Samantha had heard enough apologies, and none of them had changed the fact that her trust had been shattered. She didn't want to play a part in the drama that had consumed her life, and she didn't want her child exposed to the chaos any longer. No matter how much Mendeecees pleaded or promised change, the damage had already been done. Her focus remained on creating a peaceful, stable life for her son, something she was finding harder and harder to achieve as the media continued to surround her. But Samantha was strong, and she would fight for her child's future. She knew that healing would take time and that it might never fully come. But for now, all she could do was protect the life she had built for them both. That the road to redemption would not be quick or easy. He had hurt the people he loved most, and no apology could erase the pain he had caused. But as time went on, he began to understand that change would require more than just words. It would take actions. He could no longer hide behind excuses or try to fix things on his own terms. He needed to show that he was truly committed to making things right, no matter how long it took. Despite the turmoil, there was a glimmer of hope for Mendeecees. Slowly, he started to make small steps towards redemption, focusing on his own personal growth. He knew that it would be a long time before he could regain the trust of those he had hurt, and that maybe, just maybe, forgiveness would come only with time. Meanwhile, Yandy continued to grow stronger. She had been through the worst and was determined to not let it define her. She focused on healing, rebuilding her life, and creating a future for herself and her children. The road ahead was still uncertain, but with the support of her loved ones, Yandy felt more empowered than ever. The drama, while still fresh in the public eye, was no longer the center of their lives. Both Yandy and Mendeecees were starting to find their own paths, separate from the chaos that had once consumed them. There were still many unanswered questions, and the scars from the past would take time to heal, but each day they both worked toward finding peace in their own way. As time passed, the tension began to ease. Life, though still difficult, seemed to offer a chance for new beginnings for both of them. And while the future remained uncertain, the possibility of healing for both their families and themselves was now something they could hope for. Happen. Next, would Mendeecees and Yandy find a way to heal and rebuild their broken marriage? Could they ever overcome the deep wounds caused by betrayal? The questions were many, and the answers were not clear. Yet, there was still hope that the journey toward healing could lead them to a better place. Mendeecees knew that he had to prove that he could change. He had to show not only Yandy and Samantha, but also himself, that he could be the man he had always promised to be. It would not be easy, and he had a long road ahead of him. But he was starting to realize that redemption was not just about saying sorry, it was about making real changes and taking responsibility for his actions. Yandy, on the other hand, was slowly starting to take back control of her life. She'd been through so much, but her strength was undeniable. She focused on her children, on her own well-being, and on healing. Though the pain of betrayal would always be a part of her story, she was determined to not let it define her. The scars would always remain, but with time, they might not hurt as much. As for Samantha, she continued to protect her son from the chaos that had been brought into their lives. She remained strong, focused on what mattered most, her child's future. She knew that the media would eventually move on, but her relationship with Mendeecees would always be a part of their shared past. She didn't care about the drama or the public attention. What mattered to her was her son's well-being. The future of Mendeecees' family was uncertain. Could they ever come back from the heartbreak and betrayal? Would they be able to find peace? The answers were unclear, but what was certain was that their story was not over. There was still so much to unfold, and only time would tell what would happen next. Fans, too, eagerly awaited the next chapter in this dramatic saga, wondering if there could be a happy ending or if the damage was too great to heal. No one knew what the future held. But one thing was for sure. The emotional journey had only just begun. This one, as the saga continues to unfold. The drama, the heartbreak, and the struggle for redemption are far from over. And we want to know where you think this roller coaster of betrayal is headed. Will Mendeecees' efforts to win back Yandy's trust succeed, or has the damage been done? Can they truly rebuild their family, or is this the end of the road for them? As always, we want to hear from you. Your thoughts, your predictions. Share them in the comments below. And remember, this is just the beginning. You do not want to miss the shocking twists that are sure to come next. Hit that like button if you're on this wild ride with us, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the latest updates. We've got so much more coming your way. Don't forget to turn on your notifications so you're always the first to know when new drama drops. The next chapter is just around the corner, and you won't want to miss a single moment. Stay tuned for more, and let's keep the conversation going.